Okay. Uh, okay. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, evening, depending on where you are joining from. I welcome you all to this event on writing the statement of purpose for your grad school application. And it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Sayeed Mohammad. Welcome, Saeed Bhai. Uh, so Dr. Saeed Mohammad has been associated with the SSGSA for quite a few years now. He was introduced to us by our former chair, Dr. Wasiqul Islam, when he was doing his PhD at the Oklahoma State University, and Said Saab was a member of the faculty there. So since then, he has mentored. May I request all the attendees to please mute themselves? Uh, okay. So he has been associated with us quite a few years. So after being introduced by Dr. Wasiqul Islam to the SSGSA program, he has mentored quite a few of students in past few years. And I had the privilege of being a co-mentor for a few students alongside him last year. And I quite learned a lot from him. And he is a very dedicated mentor. So whosoever from amongst us is being mentored by him, they are lucky to have him as a mentor. So a bit of his like professional introduction. So he is currently a research engineer at Fractionation Research Incorporated, which is a global consortium of world's largest petroleum refining, chemical, and distillation equipment companies. So FRI has conducted distillation research using commercial scale equipment for the past 70 years. And prior to joining the FRI, he was a research faculty member at the chemical engineering department at Oklahoma State University. And during his time at OSU, he has won multiple awards, and some of those being Dean's Excellent Teacher of the Year Award in 2017 and Chemical Engineering Professor of the Year Award in 2019. So one of the aims of having this webinar is so that other current scholars and all the students from AMU can understand a bit of do's and don'ts of writing an SOP, so that reviewing becomes a bit simpler for the mentors as well as who are not like even if you are not being directly mentored by the SSGSA, you will find those insights useful. With that, I'll pass on to Dr. Saeed Mohammad Saab so that he can begin his presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that very nice, generous, and very kind introduction. I don't deserve so much kind words that you used, but thank you. It's great honor and pleasure to be here with you all and present this webinar. The aim of this webinar is to ensure that you have a good starting point for writing your SOP, and hopefully it will minimize the number of iterations you yourself do, and then along with the mentors, how much time it takes you to produce a new or a kind of a final draft. So that's my objective today. If we have accomplished it by the end of it, I would be very happy. Let me start my screen share. Let me start my screen share and then see. Hopefully it's all good. All right, so let's get started. So today's topic would be about writing not just any SOP, but hopefully an effective SOP that minimizes your work in the long run. So we will look at a larger picture, bird's eye view of what SOP is and what it isn't. And after that, we'll also look at very granular details of what might go in each paragraph. So I would encourage you to pay close attention, and hopefully there will be plenty of time remaining at the end for any questions. So please do ask questions while we are all together today. So before I start, I would like to make an acknowledgement. Throughout my life, I have I've been taught to give credit when it is due. And I do want to give credit here to two entities or two groups of people. One is Tayyaba Khanam. She is an SSGSA scholar from 2021, and the SSGSA team. This webinar grew out of a conversation I had last year with Tayyaba about writing an SOP when she was writing her SOP for coming to US this year. And that at SSGSA's request, she drafted those notes from our conversation. And I think SSGSA team has edited that significantly. This is what I've been told. And those notes or guidelines are available to you through SSGSA. And so I really appreciate the work that all of them have done. It helped me as well as I was preparing the slides for this webinar. I knew what I was going to say, but I kept checking with that summary to ensure I did not leave anything important out. So thank you all for preparing that guide. It's very useful. I found it useful as well. A quick note, this webinar presents my personal perspective on what an SOP should be, uh, and it may or may not represent completely the views of SSGSA. So don't keep this as something official. It's a person's personal perspective that I'm presenting. If you do receive uh, different advice from SSGSA mentors that you work with, please respect that advice and use that advice above and beyond what you see today, because they might be more familiar with your situation than what I might be showing today, which is more general. So please keep that in mind. That being said, if you do feel strongly about certain aspects of your SOP, please do bring it up with your mentors politely. They are there to help you guide your work, but ultimately it will be your decision on how you want to proceed. Okay, but please be polite when you do that. All right, so what is an SOP? An SOP is basically a professional statement, and that's underlined here as we will see shortly, highlighting several key areas. And I have put them in question form. So as you look through a checklist, whether your SOP has it or not, look through these questions. First thing, why are you interested in graduate school? An SOP, as the name suggests, statement of purpose. Your purpose is to get into graduate school. And so why are you interested in graduate school? Why is it so important to you? Somewhere in the SOP, you should explain these. And again, these questions don't have to be answered in the order in which I have listed them, but this is a checklist. By the end of your SOP, you should have covered all of the points that I'm describing on this slide. How have your current educational experiences prepared you for graduate school? This is a key aspect of any SOP, because they will analyze you based on your current knowledge, skills, and experience, and whether you are qualified enough, whether you have the credentials enough to undertake graduate study and be successful at it. So this is a key aspect of any SOP, which will require maybe 1/3 of SOP. So this is a very useful point that you should include. What skills have you gained that make you suitable for graduate school? So this is just like an advertising statement where you are in a very professional way telling the admissions committee on what your skills are that are directly useful to their graduate program that you are seeking to enter. So that's very important. And that's generally described not just in resume, but in your SOP as well when you discuss your background. What would you like to do in graduate school? People don't want students who come here and who ask advisor, okay, so what do I do next? We like certain independence from graduate students. And when we, as faculty members, looked at a student, we also wanted them to take decisions, of course, guided decisions by us. But we wanted them to take initiative in what aspects of research, what directions in research they would like to do. After all, it's their PhD or MS program. Generally, for PhD, you get a lot more leeway. So you need to have a clear idea what you would like to do in graduate school. How do you intend to use your graduate school education in your career? Towards the end of SOP, this is one thing that admissions committees do look for. So you got an education degree, not to just get a certificate and hang it on a wall, frame it and hang it on a wall. You want to use your degree to advance your career. So how would you use it? How would you use this degree program to advance your career? That is something you should have a good answer for in your SOP. So these are questions that you should keep in mind as you draft your SOP. Again, it's not going to be in this order, but this is a checklist. By the end of SOP, you should have answered all of these questions at a minimum. Now, in addition, SOP is a useful extension of your resume. What do I mean here? A resume is a very linear document. You don't get much space there. You describe your background, experiences, and you list certain projects, internships you did. But you don't really get to describe the real story behind what you did and how significant it was to your learning experiences. So in resume, you don't do that because there is no space for describing it. But in a statement of purpose, you actually get an opportunity to describe what you did in a project, internship, any research experience you had, any course projects you had, and what you learned out of them. So this is your advertising statement in a very professional way, in a hidden kind of a subtle way, to impress the admissions committee about your skill level. Okay, so that's why I'm saying it's a very useful extension of your resume. This is the only document where you get this opportunity in your application package, typically. So treat this as essentially your, you know, unique statement that you want to develop about your profile. Now, what is SOP? We looked at it. Now, what it isn't. Okay, so there's a lot of confusion about what SOP should contain and shouldn't contain. I've seen good examples and I've seen very bad examples. So let's see what would be bad examples of an SOP. An SOP is not a personal statement. Okay, so don't include any personal challenges, difficulties, hurdles, obstacles, whatever you call them, that you faced, whether they were in professional life or personal life. Those are not to be included. Also, when you go out to interview for a job, you typically don't reveal, voluntarily at least, any negative information about your profile. It does not mean you're perfect. You're not claiming to be perfect, but no one describes their negative aspects of their application. So don't include any negative information. Even if you think there is a nice story to tell where there was something very difficult for you, but you eventually came through it, and then there was a positive ending, even then I would strongly encourage you not to describe that aspect in an SOP. An SOP, as we saw, is a professional document. These things belong to a personal statement. If some universities do request it, you can describe your personal challenges with due respect. You can describe them over there, but not in a SOP. An SOP is essentially a very professional statement. It should not include any struggles that you went through, with due respect to your struggles. Okay, so don't include any personal aspects of your life, either professional or personal, any challenges or any negative information that tells them that you struggled through something. Don't include those aspects. It should not look like a cover letter. I've seen people try to address dear so and so, or this and that, or you, I mean, addressing to someone. Please don't do that. An SOP is not a cover letter. A statement of purpose is supposed to be read by many people. You don't know who's going to read it. So don't make it look like a cover letter. Don't make it look or sound as if you're seeking an open position. So that's what you do in a cover letter. You're essentially asking to be interviewed. You're asking to be considered. SOP does not have this explicit asking for an admission. It's a very hidden, subtle document that just shows them your credentials, your competence, and your technical academic background. But it doesn't really ask for an admission as openly as a cover letter would ask. So please don't make it sound or look like a cover letter. And don't address SOP to a specific individual, okay? And to whom it may concern and all of that, please don't include that at the top. That's not how SOP is written. SOP has some commonalities with a research statement, but it's a lot more comprehensive than a simple research statement. So don't think it's only a research statement. It's a lot more than that, as we will see as we go along this webinar. So SOP discusses both your current and past skills, I would say, and experiences, as well as your future research plans. Okay, and research statement will have only one of these, probably the research plan, but not what you did until now. But that's also focused on in SOP. So keep that in mind, please. Now, how is SOP likely to be evaluated? Being on the faculty, I did get behind the scenes look on how admissions are processed, what faculty members look for in a student. Now, I must admit here that most departments in schools have their unique way of going about admissions. It's very difficult to generalize what I'm going to present here, but you can expect most of these things to be roughly true in any school in the US. Okay, and again, I should have said that in the beginning. I am covering US admissions. If you are looking at Europe or Asia Pacific, then I'm not looking at those aspects, because I think they have different requirements and they may use some different document and an SOP. So this is specific to US universities. I should have said that at the beginning, but I'll say it now. So how is SOP likely to be evaluated by professors, graduate program director, or an admissions committee. So it's going to be evaluated on number one, your academic, technical background and competence that is relevant to the selected research field that you have applied to. Do you really have the credentials to be considered fit for doing the type of work that you intend to do in that research group or in that department? That is bulk of the evaluation that will happen in an SOP. Based on the SOP, your resume and your academic profile, professors will have a very good idea whether you might be able to handle this work or not. Given the chance, would you be able to learn? Do you have enough background, enough skills that you're a good athlete? And if you're a good athlete, yes, you have a good basic fundamental knowledge in that area, and maybe we can teach you further other things. And then you can teach us probably what you learned. So that's how they evaluate. Do you have that foundation where we can build on? If you don't have that foundation, then really it's very difficult to get into a school for that program. So that's number one aspect that they will look for. Evidence of current credentials. Now we can claim a lot in our resume and uh, in an SOP as well, but the admissions committee or the professors or professor evaluating your application will make a judgment call whether it all adds up or not, whether you are claiming things that are beyond reasonable. Are they agreeing with what your overall profile tells them about you? Have you overclaimed? Have you made claims that are not supported by the results that you got and that you claim to have gotten in your research? So things like that. So this is a judgment call. It's not a numerical number 1 to 10. This is a judgment call that a faculty member will make about your application based on what you write. And do you have genuine interest and passion for graduate research? This is what they're looking for. It's not easy to spend 5 years of your life if you're coming here for a direct PhD option. It probably will take 5 years, maybe even longer for some majors. No one spends 5 years of their life on things that they're not passionate about. And so it's a long journey. Okay. When I did PhD, it was the same. And it can get a little challenging at times. And people try to say that, okay, am I really doing the right thing? It can get dark. And that's normal in a PhD program because it's fairly long. So unless you have genuine passion and interest in that graduate study or program, you are really getting into something that you probably don't fully understand. It will be a lot of work over 5 years of your life. So they do want to see whether how committed you are, how passionate you are to really finish the job that they will be giving you. And clarity in expressing your research interests and goals. So here, obviously, we are all hazy when we begin. I don't expect you to have a polished research proposal in a SOP, but they will still be looking at whether your claims are plausible, reasonable, any goals or any research plans that you briefly discuss, are they really doable? Okay, so make them kind of reasonable. Don't go over the board and try to think that you have the world's biggest budget to do things. Be reasonable, and I think most faculty members will value that when they review your application. So that was a high-level overview of what an SOP should be. Now let's look at how to start writing an SOP. So it's good to kind of give you an overview, but I thought I should give you a paragraph-wise breakup on what each paragraph should contain so that you can at least start writing it. So first paragraph. Now, first paragraph should introduce yourself, what you are, who you are, what you are doing. You don't need to write your name. This is not a cover letter. It will be part of your larger application. So you don't need to write your name that I'm so-and-so or I'm at this institution. That's already clear from your application. But you want to start about describing about, so first paragraph is very important. And why is it important? Because here you introduce yourself, who you are as of today, and what your background is, and how you got started. So describe a genuine experience if you have it. For example, how you got into this subject or major that you're currently in, if it's mechanical engineering or something in arts and humanities or English or literature, any or sciences, maybe chemistry or physics. Whatever major you have selected, if you have a genuine experience that drew you or inspired you to do that study at the undergraduate level or even at the master's level, I know some of you are already in the master's program there, then describe that and be genuine. If you don't have such an experience, don't describe it. So if there was a sibling that inspired you, if there was one of your parents that inspired you, or a high school teacher or some other, or a college professor that inspired you to take this major, please describe it in the first paragraph. They're looking for passion for that area, how committed you are to the area that you are in, or did you just end up there by chance? Okay, so that needs to be there in the first paragraph, your current journey on how you entered this major. Now, be genuine and keep your story unique. Everyone has a unique story. Don't make it up. If you don't have such a story, start normally. Start by saying how you got into the program, how you qualified for entrance test, and how happy you were, and how content you are with your current study. You can just make it quite general if you don't have a unique, genuine experience. But don't make up stuff just to sound good, because it's an occupational hazard. But professors can, we can easily spot if it's a fake story. So don't make it up. And in fact, if it looks like it might be perceived as not genuine, don't use it if it's too unusual for a normal audience. So be very careful about not putting off someone by an introduction that may not sound truthful. Okay, so err on the side of caution here when you describe yourself, and be humble. Now, second to fourth paragraphs, once you have described your starting or current journey on how you got here, this is where the bulk of your SOP will be, which is to prove your competence, prove your credentials, and let the admissions committee know that you are qualified to undertake graduate study, because this is the number one question that they are concerned about. Can you be successful in a graduate program? And your current background will give them a very good overview of where you are today. Do you have the foundation to take that study? So here, describe your experiences from research internships or even industrial internships, even if they were 1 month long. That's okay. You still learn a lot. Projects, if you don't have any such internships or projects, describe your course projects. Describe anything that you did related to your field of study right now, and describe what you did. And as I lay out in this slide at the bottom, we'll discuss that, how to construct that paragraph. So ideally, you should use one paragraph for describing a major experience. So let's say you have one internship and two projects, or two internships and one project that you want to describe. So that should be 3 paragraphs. Ideally, I think you should use 3 experiences. If you have them, if you have more, I would still limit to the best 3, the most relevant 3 that you have, because you don't want to spend too much time talking about yourself and your past or current. So 3 paragraphs, small paragraphs should be sufficient. If you have less than 3, that's fine. You don't need to cook up something. Just describe what you have. But I think at least 1 or 2 should be in there to tell them about what you have been doing. So 1 paragraph for each experience. Now, how do you write that paragraph? That's very important for an SOP. It's not just describing like in resume, but you have to really give them a story behind it without being verbose. So what was the problem? Briefly in a sentence, describe what the problem was, what were you assigned, where you worked, 2 sentences, let's say, overall. Then you describe what you did, what skills and tools, whether you used some software, some experimental skills that you gained, what analytical tools you used, or how you did your survey. If you're in arts and humanities, how you did your study, and how you prepared your study, who helped you, who you worked with, and all of that. So that needs to be maybe briefly described in 1 or 2 sentences. So what tools and skills you used to solve the problem. And very important, what were the key findings from your work? So it's one thing doing it, but what did you actually learn from it? What came out of that? So that's a tangible result that you want to discuss, and be very specific about it. Don't just say, oh, I did this and it was a great valuable learning experience. Don't say things like that. Give them some numbers, give them some tangible results that not in details, but overall on what you found and how it was helpful in your overall educational journey. So quantify your findings if possible, attach some numbers to what you did. And if it made a bottom line difference to someone, include that, because that's the tangible result that you got. And how has this experience prepared you for graduate school? That's a very key aspect of writing that paragraph. That paragraph is not written just to be like your resume. It's written with a specific focus to prove to the committee that you and your experience are fit for graduate school. So connect the two in a very subtle way. How this experience has made you more qualified for graduate school. Now, once you do that, then the two most important paragraphs for the future, and those will be, you can put them separately or you can combine them, but I would just say use two paragraphs depending on how many professors you have been in touch with. So these paragraphs will describe your research interest in graduate school. This requires some reading, understanding what faculty members do, and then you write things that are in line with what your own interests are and what they're actually doing right now. So describe your research interests, do your background work or research on what areas different faculty members do at your target school. So this requires some reading, contacting them, getting connected to them through different channels, maybe even on LinkedIn or their students, and understanding what they actually do, what kind of work they're currently doing. Don't just depend on their website. Faculty member websites are not updated. My website was not updated for years after I stopped working on certain areas. So don't depend on the website. They are not updated very frequently, even at very good schools. Check with the people on the ground what currently they are working on. Don't just blindly believe what's listed on the website as their current projects. Frequently, it is not true. We have moved on to other areas. So mention some of the faculty members by name in your SOP. If you have been in touch with them, or if you feel their areas of research are closer to you, I would say you should mention them. It's okay to mention more than one, because after all, you are not assigned an advisor yet. So it's okay to mention up to 3, I would say. But don't say you can work with anyone. Then that sounds phony and fake. So pick your choice, basically make a choice, pick your people that you want to mention there. And if you have been in touch with them, you heard back from someone, you can briefly include that you are in touch with someone, and you found you found it very exciting to be having the possibility of working with them. And mention what part of their research work excites you the most. This is something very useful. All faculty members are excited about their own work. So if you share that excitement, yeah, maybe you have a spot in their group. So that's important. And demonstrate that your research interests, skills, and backgrounds are closely aligned with their current work. This is something that you did in the previous paragraphs, but you can reiterate in these paragraphs, again, in a very subtle way. And don't say that I consider myself fit for your group. Let them decide that. So be polite, be humble. Don't claim something that you can't judge or decide for yourself. Okay, so a few more things about those two paragraphs. They are key aspects of any SOP, and this will be specific to each school or university that you are applying to. So this will have to be customized. If you're currently working on a research problem, well, you can describe it. And if you have a research idea that you think is pretty neat, describe it too. People want students who think out of the box. If you think it's a neat idea that a faculty member may take interest in, briefly describe it. Oh yeah, I would like to study this problem if given the opportunity, So describe that if it's reasonable. And include at least 3 related research areas. So don't just put all eggs in one basket and say, this is the only area I want to study ever. No, you don't know whether that area is available or not, whether they have available positions in that field or not. So have at least 3 areas and up to 3 faculty members that you can mention, one after the other, as being open to those 3 areas, 1, 2, and 3, okay, in that order. And you can put the first one, the most, the favorable one that you feel you might like, and then go from there. Last paragraph is your closing paragraph. You need a strong closing. Again, close by saying or showing genuine interest in learning. And we want students who are hungry to learn, who have hunger to learn. So if you're not looking to learn, then really you can't really teach someone something, and then you won't be able to teach us what you learned during your study. Because by the end of graduate school, you would have known a lot that you would be able to educate us on what you did, really. We don't know everything. Professors don't know everything. No one knows everything. So we are looking forward to you and your study to educate us on what you did, because you went in depth for maybe 5 years or maybe 2 years. Even if it's a master's program, you do still learn a lot. So we are looking to learn from each other there. So do you have that interest in learning and sharing what you learn? And work by, and also say that you want to work with a world-class faculty that they have if given the opportunity. And now don't make SOP generic by saying, oh, at this institution, I would love to work with this or that. Of course you can do that, but what I would suggest is try to highlight something unique in their program that you love or you like, and why this graduate school or this department is important to you. Try to highlight that. If you can pick something nice and useful about their program that is genuine, and mention why this is so important to you. I think that will connect you better with the admissions committee, rather than saying, I just want to get into this grad school because your ranking is good. That is understood. That doesn't really add any value. Okay. And also in the last paragraph, you can mention what you want to do after graduate school. So that was all the things about, the paragraph breakdown that I wanted to cover with you. Few aspects very quickly, we'll look at it, and then I'll close for questions. But these are important aspects, so please pay attention. Format of SOP is generally 2 pages, should not exceed 2 pages, unless the university allows you to, which I have never heard. So maximum 2 pages. Use common font style and sizes, font size 11 or larger. US letter size pages are recommended. Don't use A4 as far as possible. Use normal 1-inch margins. Don't try to squeeze in a lot of information. Professors are old and we read a lot, so we don't like small text because it's just not very polite to give a small text. Okay, so the weekly reading of a professor could be in hundreds, probably even more pages. So we read a lot, make it easy for us to read. Some would read 1,000, 2,000 pages. So please make it easy for them to read. And then check university website for format requirements, word limits, page limits, if it's 500 words or 1,000 words, something like that. And then the aspects that you must include. They generally give you a helpful list. Make sure you cover all those high points that they have listed. They'll be similar to, I think, what I have listed here, quite likely. Okay, style. So how do you write SOP? What kind of style you should use when you write? What kind of language you should use? Don't use complicated jargon. Okay, don't think you're impressing the committee by saying how fine tuned you are with complicated terminology. Don't use it, please. Don't use unusual vocabulary, and definitely don't use GRE style English. Okay, in my 2 decades of work here, I've never seen GRE style English in any document that we submitted to any agency, funding agency, journal, or or for a book. I've never seen that sort of vocabulary. Okay, so there is a tendency, because by the time you write an SOP, you probably would have a GRE score, and there's a tendency to start using GRE style English and use the vocabulary that you worked so hard to gain and to learn. So please don't use GRE style English. Use common English, simple language, clean, clear, grammatically correct. But be formal. Don't be casual. Don't use English slang like you talk on any of those social media channels. No, not at all. It's a formal professional statement. Be professional, but don't use complicated vocabulary, and definitely not GRE style vocabulary. And use language that a technical person can understand. Okay, and it's written for a technical audience or readership. Avoid acronyms unless they are well known in your field. If using acronyms, describe what the full form is and then use the acronym in the rest of the document. Use a spell and grammar checker. Proofread your draft before submitting it, and use specific examples in describing your background, experiences, goals. Don't describe or don't include descriptions that are broad. Like I mentioned earlier, that it was a valuable experience to learn this. No, that's a very generic thing. What you learned out of it, I gained two analytical skills that I gained from this. That's a learning experience that you got from your course project, lab project, or even an internship. So describe it in what you gained out of it, not that, I've just had a valuable experience. That's an empty statement. So be very specific about what you gain, again, with an interest to telling them that you are qualified for graduate study. Paragraph development. Few aspects about paragraphs, because I think they are very important. I've seen even graduate students not understand this. So I think this is a good audience to cover this right away. So the sooner you learn this, I think the better. Each paragraph should be 5 to 7 lines maximum. Okay. Each paragraph should describe only one major idea or experience. So don't mix and match. And each paragraph should naturally flow or lead to the next paragraph, which I call weaving. Okay, so naturally the big end of one paragraph should naturally lead you to the beginning of the next paragraph. There shouldn't be like a big gap in what you write. Avoid long sentences. Americans read slowly, and they write slowly and they speak slowly as well. Although English is their native language, English is not our native language, but they read much slower. Okay, so don't have long sentences. If a sentence is more than about 2 lines, it's probably too long. Split that into separate sentences. 3 or more lines for a single sentence is just too long. So don't do that, please. Use past and future tenses consistently, singular, plural as well. Use them consistently. Don't mix and match recklessly. And be concise. Be concise. I've included more details here to explain things to you. But in general, I'm very precise, very concise as well. I like to be concise when I present, but I've deliberately included more information on the slides just to make sure you can refer to these slides later and kind of have to easily make notes. Okay, so developing an SOP is an iterative process. Start small. For example, if you may find it easier to write about your current experiences because you know them very well, so it's easy to write about. Start with those middle paragraphs, the middle section of the SOP as we discussed a while back. Write the introduction, closing paragraphs very carefully, and paragraphs about working with faculty members also. Be very careful about what you claim. Don't claim anything more than what you think is reasonable. If you have had contacts with them, don't say that they have promised you an admission already if that's not true. Okay, so be very careful, be very polite. Please don't sound arrogant or super confident or overconfident. That will be certainly a red flag. And someone who knows it all, please don't claim like that. That's not the way to get an admission. That in fact will negatively impact your application. Show a genuine desire to learn from others, especially faculty members, and also contribute to what they are doing. You're looking to learn and contribute back to their research group. That's what we are looking for in a student. Some action items for you before I go or before I quit for today. Review your notes if you took them during the webinar. I hope you took some notes during the webinar because chances are 15 minutes from now, if I were to ask you what we discussed, quite likely that we will forget. So I hope you took some notes. If not, go back to the recording and do make your notes. It will save you a ton of time down the line. Read the SOP guide provided by SSGSA. It's a companion document to this webinar. If I have left out something, I think the guide will still be useful when you write the SOP. It's drafted by Tayyaba and the SSGSA team, as I mentioned earlier. Start developing your areas of interest as you read more about what's available in your desired schools. Okay, so you may not have a good idea about that right now, but as you read about more faculty members, read about their research, I think you'll have more clarity. So please do that. Start doing that right now. Try to have sufficient background in your areas of research that you want to claim, that you want to pursue in graduate school. Okay, and we can talk about how to do it during questions. Closing thoughts, SOP can make or break your graduate school application. It can either impact it negatively or positively, and you want to make it have a positive impact on your application. So draft this very carefully. This document is an important document along with recommendation letters and your overall profile. This will probably lead you into graduate school at your desired department or university. Don't start writing until you have a clear idea of what you want to write. Okay. So if it's garbled in the head, it's going to be garbled on the paper. So don't just produce a draft and send it to your mentors thinking that they will fix it. No, it doesn't work like that. If you're not clear about what you want to write, hang on to it a little bit. Clarify your ideas in your mind and then start typing or writing. Refine your draft as you go along and customize the SOP. We can discuss more about how to do it during questions. And get the SOP reviewed by SSGSA mentors, and please give them plenty of time. They have their own work as well. So please do have respect on this, that they may not be able to get to you overnight. A colleague of mine here has a very good note in his office, and it says, lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part. Okay, and I think there's a lot of value in that statement. So please do not leave it to the last minute. Give them advance notice so that they have a time on their calendar that they can kind of contribute to your SOP and refine it, work with you. But if you approach it approach them at the last minute, it may not be very fruitful for you. All right, that's all I had. Thank you very much. And I hope we have time for questions. Thank you for paying attention today. Out and one word of advice: please work closely with your mentors. I think they are great people. And if you do want to reach out to me, I'll be happy to hear from you. Do reach out to me through SSGSA. They can share my contact details with you, email that is. And when you do contact me, make sure you copy your mentors. It's professional to make sure they know that you are contacting me. So that is certainly possible. You can contact me, but through your mentors, not directly. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Sayeed Sab. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for hijacking your closing.
Thank you so much, Sayeed sir.
Okay, then if there is nothing, then we closed off the webinar for the event. And again, thanks to everyone for joining. And of course, thanks to Dr. Sayeed Sahab for such a beautiful and nice talk. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.